It's a fallacy.
Right.
Yeah. It's like get me a burger, but then you never get the burger. It's weird.
That doesn't make any sense. But the only way
In my head, I thought it was a lot better than I thought it was.
Hello there. Welcome to On the Beat, the podcast that uncovers full frontal male nudity in cinema. My name is Laura, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan.
Hello.
Ryan, it's part 4 of Schrader-thon.
Yeah, as far as we're aware, this is part 4 of Schrader-thon.
Well, this is the 4th movie that we've done.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean.
All right.
So we've done 3.
We have done 3.
And after 3 comes...
the card counter.
The card counter. The 2021 drama, The Card Counter, obviously directed by Paul Schrader. The Shrades, my boy.
Yes.
We know all about Schrader. You've told us all about him.
Yeah, I've already told you all about Paul Schrader, and if you don't know about Paul Schrader by now, then what are you doing with your life?
How have you gotten to part 4 of the glory of Schrader-thon without learning so much?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we batter our listeners over the head continually, then maybe they might be encouraged to check out part 1, 2, and 3 of Schrader-thon.
I mean, I just assume that they have it playing constantly because they're all perfect. And so is Paul.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, that sounded like a horrendous boost to your ego, but anyway, let's say.
To mine?
Yeah, let's carry on.
I don't need a boost. I'm already at the top. I'm filled up.
Oh, all right.
Ego
full to the brim.
That's right.
Yes, that's why we consider therapy.
So this film stars Oscar Isaac as William Tell, Tiffany Haddish as Lalinda, Ty Sheridan as Kirk with a C, and Willem Dafoe as John Gordo.
Yeah. We saw this movie in the cinema when it came out.
I was so stoked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, obviously, you know why.
I mean, to be fair, one is because it was directed by Paul Schrader, but your love of Paul Schrader was that was gestated effectively in 2021.
Yes.
But also 2021 marked the time when it felt considerably safer to potentially go and sit in a cinema with other people.
Well, the last film I saw of Schrader's in the theater was obviously First Reformed, where I went with a friend, and I think we were 2 of maybe 2 people in the theater. There might not have been anyone else in there. So I knew I was probably pretty safe to go see The Card Counter with you.
Yeah.
How many people were in the theater? Maybe, well, actually, it was a pretty small theater that time.
It's a small theater.
There was actually probably like 6 other people in there.
2 groups, but the average age in there, even including us, was close to like 50.
They were all, it was a weird thing because as we were watching the movie, it was choppy and it was getting out of sync. And no one wanted to get up, obviously, because no one wanted to miss anything, but it kept chopping and it was all fucked up.
So basically, the hour and 40-minute film ended up being 2.5 hours because of the technical issues we had. But it was happening during the moment that had the most tension.
The interrogation scene
in
between
the hotel
Kirk
room.
and Tell.
Yes. It kept on cutting out halfway through the scene, and I think we saw the scene maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, they kept having to wind it back.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
what a nightmare.
Well, we got free tickets, which we're still yet to use.
Well, that's because we have that Regal pass, and the movie was essentially free in the first place.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, we weren't particularly disappointed.
Let me tell you the synopsis of this film, pulled from
Okay.
Letterboxd.
Yes.
Let me put on my voice. Ready?
Okay.
William Tell just wants to play cards. His Spartan existence on the casino trail is shattered when he is approached by Kirk, a vulnerable and angry young man seeking help to execute his plan for revenge on a military colonel. Tell sees a chance at redemption through his relationship with Kirk, but keeping Kirk on the straight and narrow proves impossible, dragging Kirk back into the darkness of his past.
Right.
Actually, it should be dragging Tell back into the darkness of his past.
Yeah, because...
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
I didn't make that mistake.
No, I'm not saying that you did make that mistake, unless you did. But,
Let's not double check, because remember, I don't make mistakes. So we'll just keep it.
Yeah, there we go.
a secret.
See, yeah, aye, of course, yeah.
The tagline, though, is reap what you sow. Which that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's I mean, I guess like if you want to put it into kind of like layman terms, and you kind of want to like really truncate it and make it quite insular, it's like it's a tale of redemption for the most part.
Yeah, redemption and revenge.
Yes,
Like accidental revenge that he wasn't planning on.
Yeah. I guess like because he's running this life that he's currently in. Because the film begins effectively in the prison, and how he's like, I didn't realize I would like prison so much, but it's purely because of, I guess, like down to some rather innate obsessive compulsive disorder, and also from being in the military, is that he just loves form and conformation and order and monotony and schedules and timing and just knowing what everything's going to be day in, day out.
Right.
He's not a massive fan of color. That's definitely for sure. Everything he wears is grey.
It's like he's trying to put on a costume in a way where he's trying to show himself off as generic human being, you know? He always does his hair the exact same way. He pretty much wears the same outfits all the time. It's just as though he doesn't want to be seen, noticed. Nothing you can tell in particular about him. He's just generic good guy.
Yeah, he's got a kind of cookie cutter look about him that effectively allows him to blend into the background and become relatively unseen.
Yeah.
Which I guess is what he's kind of looking for. But for the most part, I guess certain attributations of his past is what's molded him into the person that he is today. So certainly he might have been into color, he might have been into spontaneity, he might have been into like the fruits of life, if it wasn't for the fact that he'd spent years and years and years and years torturing people as a soldier, and then taking the rap for that behavior, even though he was ordered by a higher up to do those war crimes.
It is rough.
There is some shit in this movie.
There really is. And it's one of those things where you, in terms of what our podcast is about and the films that we pick and why we pick them, this is a tough one because we haven't necessarily done one like this, one involving nudity via war crime.
There's certainly plenty of films like this that we will cover eventually.
100%. It's just the ones that are hard to talk about.
Certainly because we're still in the early beginnings of this podcast, because we're less than 30 and this is like episode 28 or something.
Yeah.
We're not really wanting to cover the hard edge films because there's hundreds to cover. We're not doing Schindler's List for a good reason.
Not wanting to dive into
we're not doing
Holocaust.
we're not doing Come and See for very similar reasons. And I think the other movie I'm thinking of is another Spielberg movie about the slavery on the boats. What's that called?
Oh,
is that Amadeus?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's also that.
Wait, Amadeus is Mozart.
Is it Amadeus? Amistad?
Amistad.
Yeah, I always mix them up. Yeah, Amadeus is that Milos Forman movie about, is it Wolf? I'm not very good at that. Mozart. Is it it's Mozart?
Amadeus Mozart. Right?
Right, so it's Amistad. It's Amistad then. Yeah, I honestly, that is probably, I'm into double figures.
Matthew McConaughey.
Making that mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few of those other ones that actually are probably going to be coming up soon.
One's about music, one's about slavery. So you probably don't want to make that mistake when you go to the video shop.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. So no, this is where obviously we delve into, I guess, like darker depictions of full frontal male nudity.
This is the first of the Schrader films where the nudity has zero to do with sex. All of the other ones have to do with sex in some form.
Yes.
leading up to it. This is
Yes.
the complete opposite. This is forced.
But that's also not to say that those depictions weren't dark either. Because certainly the canyons, I don't find that to be particularly. It's not light and fruity.
No, of course not. But it's well, none of his films are. But it's a lead up to a sexual act or the post of a sexual act.
Yeah.
American Gigolo is not in a sad context or a bad context. Canyons is rough.
No, there's some rough stuff in Gigolo though as well.
I mean, Cat People was after murder.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're trying to make some level of distinction, but I guess this is where it's like
this is a different Schrader nudity.
This is different, and it kind of we subcategorize these moments.
And there is sex in this film, but it's not the nudities. We don't get any.
It's no Room with a View. Let's put it that way.
Oh
that's
my
lot
gosh,
more.
what a treasure!
Yeah, that's a lot more jovial and innocent. This is just like, oh fuck, this is horrible.
The guy's covered in shit.
Men covered in shit,
so
and they're
awful.
being like dehumanized, and they're going through sensory deprivation, and they're being sexually humiliated, and it's
the music. I remember everyone probably remembers when that stuff came out about the torture and
so basically from the advent of the Second Iraq War, or Gulf War II, obviously there was very real, true-to-life stuff that came out, and obviously with the advent of the internet and things, because there's highlights to Oscar Isaac's character in the movie where he has an obvious dislike of the internet because the way he gets imprisoned is because he's in photos. Committing these horrible things, and if anyone does remember, those photos were released, quite a few years ago, of soldiers basically defaming these prisoners of war.
Yep, and just seemingly having a great time doing it.
Yes, and the focus in this movie is in Abu Ghraib, where they had a prison there where they were torturing and interrogating. And obviously, I'm not particularly clued up in that stuff because it's fucking horrible. But yeah, this is referencing more towards that stuff.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we have Ty Sheridan, who's in this movie, who plays Kirk with a C, and apparently Shia LaBeouf was meant to play that role, and he actually dropped off because there were scheduling conflicts. Okay.
I think either way, either one of them would have worked. The thing is, I see with Ty Sheridan, I like Ty Sheridan, but I also get him mixed up with like a bunch of other folk, like Taron Egerton and Ezra Miller and that Barry Keoghan. And obviously, I don't want to put Barry Keoghan in the same box as like Ezra Miller, because I don't think Ezra Miller's actually any good anyway. I think he's a bit shit.
Yeah, he's not in a good place.
No, I think he's just not a very good actor. And Taron Egerton, I don't
think he's a bad actor. But we need to talk about Kevin. I don't think you've seen that yet, but he is really good in that movie. I mean, but it also kind of shows like how dark you can get, and then having it transferred into his real life.
I didn't watch that movie because I didn't like Lynn Ramsey's other movie. Like We Were Really Here, that Joaquin
You Were Never
Phoenix
Really
movie.
Here?
Yeah, I didn't really like that movie that much.
Kevin's better.
Okay, Kevin's better. Well, that's good.
But he's good in that. I don't want to defend him and his personal choices in life, but you're right. He has a face that reminds me of a lot of different faces as well.
Yeah, there ends up being this kind of like blending of that particular group of individuals where I'm just kind of like they feel like they're doing the same thing. Although Ty Sheridan, at least like he was in Joe.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage actually recommended to Schrader that Ty Sheridan play this role.
Yeah, because they were both in Joe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that movie's real good. But yeah, no, I think in everything he's kind of been in, I've always enjoyed his presence in it.
Well, he played young Cyclops too. So he and Oscar Isaac,
of course, because
worked
that's a
together
defining
before.
Thing. Yeah. Right, okay. Young Cyclops.
The second worst X-Men movie ever made.
Yeah.
After
That's
Dark
like,
Phoenix.
yeah, I mean, that's like,
There's a lot of good X-Men movies.
no, there's not.
Yes, there is.
There's only one.
First Class is really good. Days of Future Past is awesome. And then
it's
you
a
have the
better
first
movie.
regular X-Men movie with Patrick Stewart. Awesome. X-Men 2 is awesome. And X-Men 3, when you look back on it,
Yeah.
has the same kind of feeling like Spider-Man 3, where after a little bit of rumination, it's not so bad.
Let's just talk about this movie because X-Men sucks.
I don't appreciate this at all.
Yeah.
So it's funny because there's so many with Schrader. He has a lot of parallels between all of his films, and I was asking you about this while we were watching the movie, where you have William Tell and he's writing in a diary, and I said to you, aren't there are a lot of Schrader movies where dudes are writing, you got your Lonely Boys writing in diaries, Taxi Driver, which he didn't direct, but still it's his movie. Light Sleeper also. You have Willem Dafoe, he's always writing in a diary too.
I mean, Bringing Out the Dead's also another one.
Has he got a diary?
I don't know if he has a diary, but it's certainly, there's so much voiceover in that movie.
Yeah.
You could always put that down to Scorseseisms, but at the same time, it's written by Paul Schrader.
Yes.
As well. It was co-written by Paul Schrader. I've always kind of found Paul Schrader stuff's very, very much like literature. It's incredibly deep and it's affecting. And also, because of the mechanics and the conventions of cinema, it's very difficult to show what a character's genuinely thinking and getting across their thought process, which is why obviously we have voiceover.
Yeah.
So he always kind of seems to use a diary or the diary idea to allow the characters to vocalize what their internal thought process is. And that can be a double-edged sword. It can be really good. Let's say, for example, in Taxi Driver, I think it's very effective. I think in this, it's very effective.
Yeah.
And there's other times where you're just kind of like, it feels a bit shoehorned in. Like the original cut of Blade Runner, which it kind of feels like it's a bit of a hammer. But I feel like, yeah, just because cinema is just, purely a visual medium, I feel like having a device there to help us vocalize what a character is thinking just gives particular characters, specific characters, a means in which to vocalize their internal thinking. So it's just not so purely visual. Because at the end of the day, if he could write a book, I think he would just write a book. Because that's what that's what obviously that's the benefits, the perks of writing a book is like how deep you can go. That's how you extend out, say, a moment that takes like half a second in real life time can be 400 pages in a book,
Right,
So,
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
There's that same scene, I think it's the first time that we see him writing in his journal, where you see his tattoo on his back.
Yes.
Which is in the worst font I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's also probably a prison tattoo.
Yeah.
As well. Or it could have been done when he was a soldier.
It says, I trust my life to providence. I trust my soul to grace. Didn't know what it meant, and you said it was probably a Bible verse.
Yeah, this was me remembering or misremembering from seeing the movie in the cinema, but I thought it was maybe a Bible verse.
Right. Classic prison tattoo.
Potentially.
Right.
Well, again, it's all about redemption. It's like when people like pray to God on their deathbed, you know what I mean? It's like they're supposedly redeemable because in this one moment you pray to your metaphysical being and you'll be all right when you go into the next life, which doesn't exist, obviously.
Oh my God. Well, I was doing some research on it, and it's a reference to another Schrader film starring Willem Dafoe, Light Sleeper, that I just talked about, where the opening sequence of the film, the main character is walking around New York, and the song World on Fire by Michael Biehn is being played, and that tattoo is from lyrics from that song.
Okay.
And also it's interesting because the composer for the card counter is Michael Biehn's son. who's Robert Bean, and he's actually the singer for Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
Right, okay.
So the guy
That's
who
interesting.
wrote the song's son composed the music for this film.
Right.
Where
That's
the
not
tattoo
Michael
comes from.
Bean as in...
No, not Michael Bain.
Not Michael Bain.
Been.
Got you. It's not Hex.
No.
Right, okay.
So there's a lot of parallels to Light Sleeper, I think, more than any of his other films. This particular one.
Okay. I mean, I would refer to, like, the card counter, and obviously previously he'd made First Reformed. There's a couple other movies as well before obviously we get to Canyons, the disruptive and obviously, cataclysmic Canyons movie. But this is this is kind of like the next stage of Schrader. You know what I mean?
He's definitely having a resurgence right now, and I think
There's a level of consistency in his stuff that's like, I mean, he's had two good movies in a row now.
Yeah.
Which is nice, and they've got a nice kind of polished production look about them.
Yes.
Which you'd never be like, holy fuck, like this is the same guy that made the Canyons. Because they both look, both movies. I mean, First Reforms especially, I think, is a fantastic movie. But
the Canyons dragged so that First Reformed and Card Counter could run. Okay,
that's fine. I mean,
we needed a Canyons.
Yeah. I mean, he's just holding his head above water, but he's using the Canyons as the Canyons as corpse as the stepping stone to keep him from the surface of the water, which I'm perfectly fine with.
I'm going to continue to be a Canyons apologist. I love it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the same with In the Cut, even though it's terrible.
Still didn't, I don't know.
Yeah. You're all liars. That's all I'm saying. You're all liars.
Do you remember that guy, that Ukrainian guy in the movie?
Mr. USA.
USA?
Yeah, I think he's a very deliberate, if not incredibly unsubtle kind of reference to one of the main prevailing kind of themes, or at least like one of the prevailing ideas, or certainly characterizations for Oscar Isaac, is that I don't think Oscar Isaac's character is a particularly big fan of America.
I don't know if I would say that necessarily.
I mean, he served his country, and I think he felt like he was stabbed in the back. But for the most part, and because...
But he's not bitter about it, though. I think
No.
he just feels guilty.
He accepted what he'd done.
Yes.
I just don't think he was particularly proud.
Of course not. Because when you look back at something such as that, when you're put into a horrible situation where you have someone above you, your boss telling you, I think you'd be really good at this job. And the job is torturing human beings in a way that's obviously not effective. And we all know that type of interrogation doesn't work.
No.
Yet you're told that you'd be great at it. You do it. You are good at it. And what that makes you think about yourself looking back.
Yeah.
When you're put into that situation where you have, that music playing and it's loud and you're inside of it. You're inside of this horrible situation. And yeah, I can't even imagine what that would be like looking back on the things that you've done.
Yeah.
And why it makes sense that he's always trying to run away from it and trying to keep his mind occupied on the one thing he's super good at.
Well, I always kind of saw that stuff as because there's religious aspects to Schrader's work where it's all about kind of like the idea of self-flagellation and like punishing yourself for your beliefs to try and, because effectively where he was working was like a self-made hell. Like that's what it looked like. It's like Jacob's Ladder hell.
Oh my gosh.
That's what it looks like.
100%.
And he's just continually trying to claw his way out of it, even though he knows, like, deep down that he can't atone for the sins that he's committed there.
No.
Which is why he punishes himself continually.
And why he's trying to save.
Yeah, it's why he he sterilizes his environment, and he lacks any sort of stimulation, like no visual stimulation, no kind of emotional stimulation, and certainly with the female character's role in this movie is that she's kind of, I guess, the light in his relatively quite dark life.
Yes.
And I guess kind of to put it all kind of into perspective is that when he's traveling around and he's going from hotel room to motel room to parking lot to other parking lot to casino, everything just looks the same. There's no sense of grandeur or spectacle about the places he's going to.
Which is funny because he's in these brightly lit, loud, sparkly casinos, but
Yes.
it never feels that way. It never feels bright and loud and sparkly.
No, this isn't like Casino, like Scorsese's Casino, where everything's kind of very kind of bright and colorful. And
Even though it is, it's so strange because it is bright and colorful, but you don't feel that at all.
yeah,
You're
well,
just walking through with this guy.
the Scorsese movie at least covered what they felt was the golden age of Vegas. Mm-hmm. So everything was a little bit more colorful and authentic as opposed to like what it effectively became.
Because Tell doesn't spend time really in Vegas at all. He's in small Indian casinos throughout the country.
Effectively, yeah, he's just going from reservation to reservation, basically.
Yeah. Just to kind of keep under the radar.
Pretty much, and he's
Modest
winning.
goals,
Yeah, he's like winning
he
less
says.
than $1,000, and every day he's there, and he doesn't overstay his welcome, and
Just enough to get him through to the next place.
pretty much, yeah, pretty much. It's it's pretty sad, and it's pretty kind of sterile, and it's just very. It's just his life is not particularly interesting.
No, it's
or
just day to
intriguing.
day.
Yeah,
Not
it's-
interested in going to museums or anything.
No.
You know what I found fascinating is the reasoning for Tell to wrap up his furniture in the hotel rooms apparently harkens back to Cat People.
Right.
So the production designer for Cat People, Ferdinando Scarfiati, so he was a production designer, and Schrader said that when they were in New Orleans, he went up to the production designer's room to just ask him about something, and all of his furniture was wrapped up in sheets, and he goes, "Nando, why is everything wrapped up?" And he said, "I have to live here." That's all he said. He's just, "I have to live here." So I guess he was just more about aesthetics, and he said he couldn't stand the idea of living in an ugly hotel. So he just wrapped everything up in sheets.
Okay.
And that was Schrader kind of thinking back to that and going, well, this is a way for Tell to kind of purify his private space.
Yeah.
Was just from what he saw in real life years ago.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's strange. I mean, I
It
guess,
also
yeah,
reminds you. It also reminds you of when, in a sort of Dexter type of way, before we murder somebody, putting the plastic sheets over everything, to just
Yeah.
keep it clean, so it's an easy cleanup too. So,
I mean,
especially at the end
yeah,
of the film.
Yeah. Well, that I always kind of hearken to that. There's a moment in one of the episodes of Cracker where I think a woman's invited back to a man's house, and he's like, "Yeah, come with me," and they open up like a door. And I've always thought it's like probably the most nightmarish moment anyone could have in their life. But just open the door and all the walls are just covered in like sheet plastic.
Yeah.
And it's just black bin bags, and it's just like, all right, well, I'm gonna die now.
Yeah.
This is it.
If I walked into someone's hotel room and everything was covered up in sheets, I definitely think I'm dying. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would just accept it because you got to go some way somehow at some point in your life. So.
He even has Kirk go into his hotel room when he's trying to convince him, because, Kirk's journey or his motivation is to kill Gordo, Willem Dafoe, for what he blames him for his father killing himself.
So yeah, Gordo or Major Gordo at the time, he obviously recruited a bunch of these MPs to go in and he trains them to become these torturers.
Interrogation
An
specialist.
interrogation specialist, basically.
Yikes.
But obviously some of them obviously came out, some went to prison, and some were mentally horrifically scarred, and they've had horrible lives, or they've committed suicide in the case of his father.
Yes. So blaming Gordo for that, that's how he meets Tell. He goes, I need help to murder this guy, which the whole time in this film, Tell is trying to get him off this path, have him go back to school, have him talk to his mom again, and kind of put him back on the right path. At least the path that he didn't go down, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So he ends up in this interrogation scene, which is horrific. The one we were talking about where the screen kept cutting out the cinema, where Tell sits him down in his creepy hotel room and says, I'm going to give you $150,000 to do the right thing.
Yeah, because he, opens up a bag and it's got, rubber gloves and hammers and all sorts of stuff in it.
Super weird, and it makes me wonder, does he carry that around with him, or did he pick it up as a prop?
He always carries it around with him.
Why would he carry that around with him if he's trying to shed his past and forget what happened?
I think it's because he just can't let go.
It's weird.
It's like it's an intrinsic part of him now.
It is weird.
And you never know. You never know when you're going to have to break someone's fingers with a hammer. So, there's always
be prepared.
It's always good to know. Yeah. Or when you have to burn someone's forehead with a fucking lit cigarette. I don't know how that works.
Oh, it's so awful.
But he's a troubled man who's just had the life sucked out of him, and he's just kind of an automaton now,
I liked that scene, though. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was great. It was terrible in the cinema. Watching it on the TV, we finally got to watch it all the way through without interruption, and it was, it is pretty good.
He snaps on those blue rubber gloves and then pushes Kirk onto the bed, and you kind of think, where is this going to go?
Yeah, it didn't go where you thought it was going to go.
It would have been pretty cool.
You perv.
I know.
Yeah.
This is not a proposal that you can afford to reject, he says.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the dick scenes? Do you want to just get it out of the way? Because it's rough. I mean, we've already covered a bit of it, but I feel like we need to give it its due chat.
Yeah.
There's two. And these are in one of them's basically a memory dream. And then the other one is just a memory.
Yeah. So I guess the main thing, the memories are shown through this warped lens. And I think anyone who's ever shot anything on one of those 360 cameras that's you're obviously seeing a 360-degree view in front of the lens. But this is kind of like a 180 view, and it kind of warps in towards the middle. So everyone kind of walks kind of funky when you see it kind of happening. But you're basically, you see everything. So I guess it's meant to illustrate someone walking through, and it's their eyesight effectively, and you're seeing everything in their periphery as well. That's what I kind of saw it being as. But I think this first moment, when we first see Abu Ghraib, it is a dream because he's actively asleep.
Yes.
And it's just it's a tracking shot through the prison.
Yeah, as if he's just walking through.
Yes.
It's really intense to watch. It's super loud. It's hard to watch too. It's very trippy and very awkward to watch. If they did it for any longer than they did in the film, I would have gotten sick.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of also helped. There's a lot of tracks by Toxic Shock in this movie, a band relatively unknown, or at least seem to be relatively unknown. There's a few of their tracks in this movie, but whatever song they picked, I think it's Sludge Master or something for this.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's just basically hardcore fucking punk metal just blasting out over the course of this prison, and it just really characterizes this fucking place.
The hectic violence of this place.
Pretty much, the consistent sense of dread and violence that's just permeating the entire place, and the walls are slightly brown yellow. Some of the, obviously some of the people are covered in their own shit.
Yeah, you just see people kind of lined up against the wall. You have soldiers actively torturing people as you're walking through.
Yeah.
People tied up with bags over their heads.
Yeah.
It's horrific. And so during this scene, you see someone getting actively tortured, standing in the middle of one of the hallways, who's completely naked. Looks like they're just covered in feces and dirt and just horrible.
Yeah.
And that there's a few of those, quite a few. There's not a lot of full frontal, just the one person, but a lot of people are naked.
Yeah.
It must have, I don't know.
Well, we see it from far away, and it's one of the female soldiers, and she's got like a nightstick, and she's just beating the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
Effectively.
My God.
Also, obviously not to distract from that particular moment, but obviously there's a man running around covered in his own shit.
Yes.
Who's in the foreground when that does happen. Being chased by someone, probably. Very kind of like, it's hard, like, we can't make it, like, there's no funny way of putting it. It's just kind of like, yeah, here it is, and this is fucking horrendous.
Yeah, it's very visceral, and it's very upsetting to watch, and of course, the way that I get through things that are uncomfortable is I like to laugh.
Yes.
It just sounds dreadful.
Yeah.
But when we were watching that scene, which I said I wasn't going to bring up, but I was like, hey, imagine just getting a part in this film, and you're so excited, and you're in the Abu Ghraib scenes, and you go, hey, Mom, I got that part in the movie. And then she watches the movie and goes, oh, God.
Oh, Jesus, Jimmy.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jimmy, man. God, why did you have to accept that bit in the movie, Jimmy?
Oh, dear.
It's directed by Paul Schrader. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah. Then that's a 21 minutes and 50 seconds, and then there's a part 55 minutes and 50 seconds in where it's kind of the
so basically
it's the VHS quality, as though it's the actual footage from the war is what it looks like.
Yeah. So I would say it's like a mix of, right, so there's a mix of stock footage in there. There's news footage, but there's these enacted moments where he's describing the torture techniques that they were put through to learn of these torture techniques, to basically like train American soldiers if they're ever caught by the, let's say, the enemy, right, that they would be able to withstand these techniques. And I guess like they go into relatively great amount of detail about all these certain things, position they would be in, and then obviously the sexual humiliation aspect of it, where there's a guy in a chair who stood up and they pulled down his pants. Yes. And we see everything. And we know it's enacted because the next shot that follows it is in slow motion. So there's definitely no way that they've...
You can't slow it down in post?
Yeah, it's proper slow motion, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, you can tell. You can tell it's been overcranked. It's definitely slow motion. And also, it looks better than the stuff that comes afterwards, which is obviously actual news footage. So
yeah, in terms of that visibility and context, it is a rough one.
Yeah, and I guess because it's one of the primary concerns of the main character, that's why it's all sort of there. So
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough stuff. It's a sad day for me when I get to see a dick in a film and then I go, oh no.
Yeah, you're just like, oh well.
Oh
okay.
dear.
Oh, Paul.
Oh, Paul.
Paul, why'd you do it to us, Paul?
Paul, thank you for, keeping it real, but good God.
Yeah.
Gotta talk about it now.
But yeah, that's the dick scenes.
Yeah, it's the dick scenes. You get a film with two, and then they're both horrible.
They're pretty horrific. Yeah, they're pretty horrific.
But you can appreciate the fact that someone tells it like it is. You have this situation. You're pulling from a real life story, a real life situation of things that happen to real people, some fucked up, horrible things. And the Schrades doesn't shy away from that in his films. So, you can appreciate that for what it is, and putting it in the film and making people feel uncomfortable Because you can have many kinds of different dick scenes, as he had in his other films. You have the sexual scenes, and then you have the ones that are uncomfortable and show the humiliation of people in this way, and how it happened, and it's rough, but the man has a variety.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the way you want to look at it. Yeah, I mean, if you want to spin the negative into a positive and be like, this is varied.
In the way that you aren't going to cut away from something like that when you're showing a truly horrific situation.
Okay.
I think that there's a way to, I don't know, it's like a responsibility to show things like that because it's uncomfortable and,
Yeah. I guess there comes an argument in there whether or not, like, this unflinching approach, if it's
like
I guess,
gratuitous.
or if it's just for shock value. I guess, like, there'll be films of this type where we're going to be covering that particular aspect, and I say Come and See is a very notable one for that aspect, because that film uses primarily, it's just stock footage. Technically doesn't need to be there, but there's a very specific reason why it's there. And also for, I would say, Schindler's List, which is all enacted. That's not stock footage. That's all real people doing it. And that movie obviously has that film is particularly rough.
Well, you don't want to say it's... I wouldn't say it's necessarily for shock value, for shock's sake, because especially the way that he shot it, it makes sense for what it is. I don't think. I mean, I guess maybe the whole sequences are shocking.
They're shocking, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess,
okay.
I guess you have to question a lot of the contextual reasoning for that sort of stuff as well.
Contextually, it makes sense for it to be there.
Yeah.
Especially the way that he filmed it. But yeah, it is. I mean, it still sucks.
Yeah, of course it does.
So
yeah, no one's having a good time.
Gets into this really crazy stuff with Kirk.
Yeah, well, you think he's turning his life around because I keep on forgetting her name.
Lalinda?
Yeah, I mean she's
Tiffany
not.
Haddish?
Yeah, she's not good in the movie.
She's the
weakest
great.
part of the movie.
It sucks that she's not great because I love Tiffany Haddish, and I know it's probably not the easiest thing to go from being mostly a comedic actor into something like this.
Yeah.
But I know Schrader has a history of doing or casting comedic actors in serious roles. You had Richard Pryor in Blue Collar, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's awesome in that. But, with Tiffany Haddish, I don't
Well, it's because
think
they tend to find it easier to go into dramatic roles like that, like Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, like
they're amazing.
They're very good at just being able to do that. I don't know, what Tyler Perry, is he a good example of being able to do that? I mean, he's good in Gone Girl, I guess.
Oh yeah. No, Tyler Perry's a good actor.
Yeah. When he's not like simultaneously shooting like fucking 400 TV shows all at once.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, she's not amazing because there's times where you can watch her in this film and you go, acting.
Yeah,
There
it
she
feels
goes,
like it feels
acting.
very forced.
But there's
Yeah.
times where she kind of lightens up and she throws a funny line in there and it is quite natural. What was that part where she and Tell are sitting at the bar and there is one of the dealers, the poker dealers,
Yeah.
is sitting down on the other side of the bar drinking and she's sobbing.
Yeah, she's like actively sobbing.
And Melinda goes, what does she say? She's like,
She's like, I'm fucking all right.
Yeah, the car dealer's like, yeah, I'm fucking all right, and she's just sobbing.
And then she just goes fucking all right, crying and shit.
My favorite line in the film.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. That bit's pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she loosened up.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I
just got more comfortable because there are times later on in the film. I doubt they shot this in sequence or anything, but
No.
There's definitely scenes where you see her getting more comfortable and it flows really, really well. But there are other scenes early on in the movie not great.
Yeah, it just feels a little
When
bit...
they meet,
a little bit stilty, a little bit wooden.
she asks for a Tom Collins, and then she's like, why don't you spend some time with me? And it's so weird.
Yeah.
It does not work.
And it's maybe more to do with the fact that Oscar Isaacs is incredibly seasoned and he's very charismatic. And like maybe in comparison to him, she's just a little bit stilted.
Yeah,
because
she
he really he fucking sells everything.
Oh yeah.
If it wasn't for him, I don't know where the movie would be.
No.
Yeah. Is that the rain?
It is pouring.
Was it thunder earlier as well? Is that what I was hearing?
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
Florida.
Then, yeah, that's fine. Just to put some context to this, because I'm leaving this in, just so you're aware.
We tried to record it faster, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, we tried our best, but we can hear certain things. Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, that's the only thing. I mean, Willem Dafoe's in the movie for, like, maybe 5 minutes.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah.
Baby, do you feel it?
And he's got
good.
He's got a mustache.
He has a mustache that looks exactly like yours.
Yes.
There's 2 films that I've watched recently where people have your mustache, and they're both villains. I just want to put that out there.
I mean, it takes
The uncle from Gone Baby
time.
Gone.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe.
He's straight Boston, that dude, though. Like, that makes sense.
You've got a villain stash, and I love it.
I don't have a villain stash.
Villains have your mustache.
Nah, I've got a disgruntled, like worker stash. Because it goes with my fucking disgruntled face. Like, I'm just continually pissed off about everything.
Your resting bitch face?
My rested bitch face, yeah. Which was once referred to from a girl at a party one time. Did I ever tell you this story?
You did, but the audience hasn't heard it.
Yeah, so I was at a Valentine's night party.
So cute.
And I was outside, and it fucking sucked. I go out to have a cigarette, and then eventually, I thought it was on my own, and then a bunch of people came after, and obviously, conversation is thick and fast and a little bit shit. But anyway, we were talking, and this random lass, no idea who she was, she just goes, "You've got a resting bitch face," like, right to me. And I was just like, "Oh, really?"
It's called a flirt.
And I was like, well, you fucking failed, obviously, with that. Later that night, I think we ended up leaving that place and we went somewhere else. But there was someone else who was...
Okay.
There was someone else interested in me.
Look
and
at you.
They'd been conspiring against each other.
Wow.
And I went out for another cigarette, and before I knew it, the lassie who I'd been talking to, the other girl had thrown a drink right in her face.
Over you? Wow, hot stud hendo.
That's fine, but like the idea of 2 women fucking arguing over me and throwing drinks at each other when I wasn't even there. I just went to go have a cigarette, and I come back and it's just like, so I kind of turned to her and I went, "Why are you all wet?"
Good God.
She's covered in like a vodka and Coke.
Speaking of being covered in something, do you want to talk about the very end of this film?
What do you mean? Oh, I was talking about poop again.
No, I'm not talking about poop again. I was talking about blood this time. So,
so this is that bit where I'm like, it's like where you repent your sins and stuff. He confronts Oscar Isaacs does. He confronts Willem Dafoe's character at his home after Willem Dafoe shot Ty Sheridan and murdered him because Ty Sheridan went after him.
Just like he said he wouldn't. And he went out there with a dart full of ketamine, thinking that's going to take down Willem Dafoe. Joke's on him. Nothing can take him down. Except Oscar Isaac.
Yeah. Well, they meet and they talk. And they're still soldiers. But, they end up...
He's going to do a dramatic reenactment of their interrogation techniques in this kitchen.
Yeah.
And they do.
And they fuck each other up big time.
All you hear is...
Yeah, you never see any of
groans and yells.
Yeah.
And then Oscar walks out covered in blood, 2 fingers hanging loose off of his hand in a pretty brutal way. Gets on the phone and calls emergency services and says, "I'd like to report a homicide."
Yeah.
Cool as a cucumber.
Yeah. I mean, he's desperate to go back to prison because that's where everything kind of made sense. Because he's always talking about, like, how what he's doing and where his life's going is that he's just passing time.
Yeah.
You know?
He just
he's
feels
just not
guilty.
really... Yeah, well, he's just not a massive fan of life. So,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, and the very end, basically the credits of this film is super similar to American Gigolo and Light Sleeper.
Yeah.
Where you've
I
got
don't like the ending of this movie.
I don't like the ending to American Gigolo either.
No.
It's the same type of thing where you have two people separated by prison. It's as though they're
Like
kind
perspex.
of returning to, well, especially in this film, he's returning to his cage, you know? And you've got two people staring at each other, or just two people separated by that pane of glass.
Yeah.
And you've got this kind of E.T. moment where they reach out and
Yeah.
press each other's fingers against one,
Yeah.
against the glass.
And they hold it for the entire length of the credits.
I just
Yeah.
see Paul going, hold it there, guys. Hold
And
your
she's got-
fingers there.
And she's got those ridiculous nails as well.
Where she can't just put her fingers straight to the glass. She has to
No.
bend it straight
Has
up.
to bend it straight up
And
so it
he's
just
a-
looks like this. Yeah, it's at a horrible right angle.
Yeah.
Because she's got those, like, 6-inch nails. And they're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it just looks a
They
little
hold
silly.
it for the whole credits. Fingers.
Yeah. Aye.
Love, baby. See, the life they could have had together if Ty Sheridan hadn't have fucked it up. Maybe they would have had a couple months. Maybe they would have had years.
I mean, to be fair, Willem Dafoe says it in the movie where they're all responsible for their own actions.
Absolutely.
Like, Oscar didn't have to murder Willem Dafoe.
Well, he knows that.
He didn't have to.
No, because he was living just a fine existence, town to town, casino
I mean,
to
he
casino.
wasn't living a fine existence. Like his vocalization of some of the things that was going around in his head, he was fucking troubled.
Oh, well, yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, he was surviving.
I mean, that's fine.
Wasn't hurting anybody.
But that's the thing. Like, what's the point in life though if you're just barely surviving?
You never know. See, here's me being the positive one saying, oh, things, might have gone really well between Linda and Tell. You never know. And then
Yeah,
Here
seems
you
like,
are.
Yeah, it seems like fire in a jar. Like it would just get extinguished relatively quickly. He
potentially,
would get bored. Yeah.
just because of how he is. But,
Yeah, 'cause
but
her-
I don't
her
know.
jo-
It
yeah.
persists. She went and saw him in prison, and they touched fingers, in glass together.
Yeah, they had that
There's a
lovely
love
memory of
between them.
being in that light exhibit thing.
That
Although
was nice.
I mean, those things are fine. I mean, we've seen a few of them in our time.
Yeah,
they're a little bit
light
tiresome.
gardens?
Yeah, light gardens, a little bit tiresome after a while.
Well, she was showing him what life could be. Do something different.
Great.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
The last couple things I wanted to bring up before we are finished is that this was obviously filmed during our ongoing COVID situation. So production was halted 5 days before, like they had 5 days of shooting left. And they had a really big scene. There was 500 extras. And
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, one extra that flew in from LA tested positive. So they had to shut down, and they shut down from March until July. And so Schrader, obviously never shying away from how he feels and making sure everyone knows how he feels, wrote on his Facebook,
Yeah, proprietor of controversy, old Shrades.
I love him. He goes, production halted 5 days before wrap by my pussified producers because an LA day player had the coronavirus. And then he wrote, myself, I would have shot through the hellfire rain to complete the film. I'm old and asthmatic. What better way
Yeah.
to die than on the job?
Yeah. He's a very classical man, because Kurosawa said the exact same thing. Kurosawa was just like, if I'm gonna die, it'll be in my director's chair.
Yeah. I can see where he's coming from, obviously, when you have
Yeah.
that goal so close in mind, but especially when he was filming this, COVID was not a joke. We can joke, well, I don't know if we can joke about it now, but it's different, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think
now
it-
from
yeah.
then. So then you've got someone rolling in with the old COVID is horrifying, because I think
Yeah.
that when they were filming this, we didn't have vaccines, we didn't have hope.
This is this will be hard into 2020, because we didn't see the movie until 2021.
Correct.
Let's say mid 2021. Let's just put a kind of date on it.
Yeah.
For many of us, 2020 And I would say most of 2021 as well
Absolutely.
is when most of the time is lost. I mean, we were busy in 2020. Like, I made films and stuff like that. 2021 is the year where I'm just like, holy shit! Like, I have no idea what to do. Like,
that was
that's where
early
time
days.
just gets lost.
That's early days too. So when we went from having no time to do anything because we were so busy, we were working, we were
Yeah.
moving, there was a lot going on, to not doing anything at all. I think that was a really nice time for creative juices to get flowing. People started making bread, and people started working on films and
Yeah, that's
writing
true.
and being creative.
Yeah.
But then, that's kind of depleted a bit as we go on through this situation that we're in. Yeah.
But we're also more protected, and we're not dealing with, like, quite virulent strains of the virus now than we were when it first came, when the novel virus was out there.
So imagining that, gosh,
Yeah.
during this particular shoot.
See, I'm a fan of that man's tenacity.
Gumption.
Yeah, like, I do like it. It does ring, and he's not the only filmmaker like this. It does ring of, like, grumpy old man syndrome. And I mean, here's the thing: like, they did an entire shoot for the most part. They've got last 5 days. Someone fucks it up.
Yes.
And whether or not it was deliberate or not, who knows? In Schrader's eyes, he's just like, I don't give a fuck. This is my movie. And I feel like that's a very old school way of thinking, That's kind of like, that's a kind of freaking way of thinking,
Oh my god, yeah.
It's like, just batter through the walls. Like, it's very much an old school way of thinking. And Scorsese's to the same part as well. I feel like, everyone's like, oh, he's so nice. But on a film set, he will fucking rip you apart.
Yeah.
He is a tiny man, but he is like a fucking honey badger. Like, he will kill you. So remember reading stories about him on the set of Gangs of New York, because Gangs of New York, unfortunately, is a Miramax film, and, like, the Weinsteins couldn't even fucking. He is as hard as a rock, that man.
That's what Schrader was saying, is that somehow Scorsese's been able to work through the the system with all different sorts of.
Scorsese's very clever. That's why we have things like studio obligation films, like the remake of Cape Fear, and that film's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
Schrader's like, Netflix couldn't take him down. All these other companies couldn't rein him in because
even when he started a fight with Marvel, like, he still kind of came out relatively unscathed.
Schrader's like, I can't do that. But I think Schrader, especially after the Dying of the Light situation, where he Final Cut was taken away from him, and he feels like they ruined his film. He's learned a lot since then.
Yeah, of course he has.
And now we've got gems.
But
like the last few films.
Schrader makes much smaller films.
Calls them his handmade films.
Yeah, like, they're much smaller films. They're much more intimate. Certainly, Scorsese in more than recent years has been doing stuff with much bigger budgets, and he does make the odd little small thing here and there, because he likes to divulge in his documentaries and stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool. But The Irishman, I mean, that movie was fucking very expensive to make.
He did all sorts of crazy camera stuff in that film.
All the de-aging shit,
Yeah.
and I would say, like, some of it works, some of it doesn't. I mean, I did like that movie. I mean, but it's also like, yeah, it's labeled as like a Scorsese gangster epic.
Well, Scorsese was an executive producer on this film.
Yeah, well, they're friends. They're friends because obviously Schrader does a lot of some of his script writing he's done for him, and he's cleaned up scripts and he's spoken to him and things like that. So
yeah, he had Scorsese watch, like, the cut of this film. So when they broke for COVID for those several months, Schrader was able to cut together like a 90-minute version of the film, and he was able to do rewrites and make it more.
Ooh.
Yeah, thunder.
Yeah.
Make it more kind of a.
Bela Lugosi is going to come down from the ceiling.
Make it more concise and kind of fix up anything. But he had Scorsese's help, and Oscar Isaac looked at it too, and they were able to pull it together in that time and do an edit. So it was a helpful thing in a weird way, that COVID break.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of Scorsese being executive producer, it was just a favor. Schrader just asked him, like, hey, can I put your name on this?
Yeah.
It'd be great. And he
Yeah.
goes, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, like, out of the pantheon of COVID-related cinema things, like, I don't have as much an issue with him not being able to shoot his movie than the Christopher Nolan bollocks that came out about Tenet. And he was, like, trying to get people to go back to the cinema in the midst of a fucking pandemic.
Yeah, and that one came out in a rough pandemic time as well.
Yeah.
So...
And it was also shit.
Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah, Tenet's also crap.
Ugh.
And I'm not going to hear it from all you fucking Nolan fanboys either, who are like, I'm not smart enough to understand what it's like. The only thing I liked about that movie is when he fucking killed Kenneth Branagh and he tossed his fucking rubbery body off the side of the boat.
Oh, yeah, that
and
was
it hit
really
the water.
good.
Yeah, that's the only thing I liked about that
Watched
movie.
that a couple times.
And I fully understood what was going on in that film. It's just a shame that it's fucking nonsensical. You're just
Yeah.
like, oh, right, okay, wow, it's opposites in the mirror. It's like, oh, fuck this. Fucking bollocks. I'm glad we watched it on streaming, on a tiny TV. It wasn't an IMAX, the way it was meant to be seen, for whatever fucking reason.
The only other thing I have to say is, we were talking about how Schrader kind of makes his handmade films close, intimate, smaller films on a smaller budget. He also does them in a smaller amount of time. He was saying that the films that he used to make in 40 days, he now makes in 20 days. This film was shot in 20 days total. Obviously
Jeez.
I know, gosh.
I know.
To wrap this up, it's getting tricky
Someone's
out there.
tapping at the window. Fucking Nosferatu shit.
And each of the scenes was done in 1 to 2 shots. Boom, done. Just due to their time constraints and their budget. So
Yeah, but I like that. That's something I've adopted as well. It's like if you can tell the scene in one shot and just develop that shot just in its entirety, I think that's the best way to go.
it's a Friedkin thing too.
Yeah, just don't take your time with it. Yeah, don't Fincher it. Don't be like,
Yeah.
I need to do this one scene. It's like, and I love David Fincher. Don't get me wrong. He's like he's probably my favorite.
That's your favorite boy.
He's my favorite boy. He always is going to be my favorite boy. I can't wait to do my favorite boy on this
Fincher-thon?
podcast. Yeah, Fincher-thon or Fincher madness. Fincher-esque. Either way.
Fincher fanatics.
Yeah, Fincher fanatics. I feel like both school of like rules or school of thoughts like work that way. Boris Karloff's at the window now. Just threw that little girl into the lake, and now he's over here.
Yeah, Schrader's got some good stuff coming down, so I'm pretty excited. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we get hit by lightning?
No, and if we do get hit by lightning, it just meant it was our time.
Wow. So, when it comes to ratings, I'll go first. This is tough. So, for the film itself, I'm just going to give it 4.
Okay, well, I gave it 4.5. I upped it a
4.5.
little
You
bit.
upped it.
Yeah, I liked
Okay.
it. I like it a lot because
Yeah,
it's
I do.
so
I
fucking relentlessly dark
Yeah.
and grim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 4.5.
Yeah, you don't have to explain any more of it. That's my
It's a good movie.
explanation. Yeah,
It's a good movie.
that's what I think.
And for visibility and context, it's
Yeah, I'm
hard.
really interested to see what you say to this because I'm gonna wait. Oh,
God, so bad.
it's kind of fucked up.
So you've got a visibility of 5. It's very obvious because it's on screen, it is in your face, it is there, and it's horrible.
And it's sometimes in slow mo.
And sometimes in slow-mo.
Yeah.
Context is a straight 0 because that's a horrible context.
Oh, hold on.
Okay. What do you got to say?
Well, the thing is like, if you take the context at face value, I mean, the context is accurate for what it's depicting, isn't it?
Okay.
Because you can't, like, that's the argument there. Just because you don't like the context and the way it's shown doesn't mean that it's a low rating. It's because it's actually showing it in the form in which it's describing it and, like, the detail in which it's going into.
Okay.
Because the scene, at least the scene where it's the enacting of the Americans being tortured and put through the techniques in order to withstand interrogation, is also anchored by the voiceover that Oscar Isaacs gives from his diary and refers to the bit that we're talking about as sexual humiliation.
Right.
So, to me, I'm like, oh, they just straight up showed it. They didn't just show it as a mid-shot and you just see some pants come down really quickly before you see anything. It just shows you everything. Like, there's no messing around with it. Like, it
Okay.
just shows you everything. So the context in itself would probably be higher than a 0, even though, let's be honest, it's not very nice. But at the same time, it's anchored with a level of context because it's it's pertaining to the actual telling of that particular aspect of the story. So the context would be quite high, I would feel.
You're not wrong.
Yes.
You're not wrong. Okay.
No.
I'm taking it all in.
You're taking your own emotion. And now,
My subjective...
here's the thing. I need to put this out on Front Street. It's not that I agree with it. I'm not like, well, I love that. That's great. You know, any which way, every which way but loose, you know what I mean? Like, it's all over.
Well, gosh, I mean, but if you're going to say it in that way, and if you're going to explain it in that way, I feel like all context would be quite high. In a weird way.
Yeah, but there's other times where we take the context, and then I also bring into the argument, I'm like, do we need to see this? Like,
right?
Do we need to see this in this particular moment? Is it purely for the gratification factor, or does it actually help to tell the story? In this case, it does help to tell the story. In other instances that we've covered in the film, let's say Sideways, it was definitely a comedy dick, you know,
Absolutely.
and it makes sense. Context is fantastic. But then there's other moments where you barely see it, like in Color of Night. You just see the Willis Willie just like bobbing up a little bit.
Yep.
It's only because it's just an editing decision. We don't need to see it. We understand what's happening there. We don't need to see it. And that's why it's not particularly clear. And then I'm trying to obviously wrap my brain as to like, contextually wise, like there's another movie where you're just like, nope, that doesn't make any sense there. I don't think we've actually covered anything.
No.
In that respect, where the context has been particularly low. It's just so that there's a different understanding as to like why these things are shown and the way they're shown. Just because we don't like the content and the tone and the thematic concerns of like why it's happening, contextually that shouldn't bring it down in that rating, I feel.
Okay. I just, when I think about it and when I think about, because I'm thinking about context, the context is rough. The context is upsetting.
Yeah, but does it help to make it more rough, is what I'm saying.
Well, it does help the story.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like that's a different word,
Okay.
Maybe not usability, but more, I don't know the word I'm thinking of, but...
I mean, there's a way to tell it where the edges are softened a little bit, but we've already kind of put out there that Paul Schrader doesn't care.
No.
And he's relatively unflinching.
It makes sense for the film. We've already talked about that, and it does help, tell the story and visualize the situation. So, in terms of that, obviously... It's good. I don't even know what to give it. I'm just going to give it a 3.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go straight down the middle and say 2.5 just so I don't look like a monster. But at the same time, I feel like that's like where my argument is going.
I think I'm happy with my original rating because, and you can give it a 1 if you want that to be the bottom. That's totally fine.
Yeah, it can't be 0.
But the way that I look at context typically is... It's horrible. You know what I mean? So it's not in a good context. It's not and I want to separate that from whether it makes sense in the film and whether or not it adds to the film. It does. But I don't think that should change my context because the context is poor. It's a sad context and it's an uncomfortable context. The visibility is still great. The context is upsetting. So, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. And that doesn't mean that it's not meant to be there. Because that's not what I meant.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Still an upsetting context.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because when I try to explain it to people, that's always how I say, is it in a happy situation, or is it in a really upsetting situation?
Yeah, is it a happy dick or a sad dick?
It's sad.
It's a pretty sad dick.
So it's a sad dick context.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
So that's what I mean.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
But I also get what you mean because it is, it isn't...
Yeah, I probably veered off a little bit in there towards the end. But
I
certainly
liked your rant because it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it made more sense than some of the rants I've had over the past, few episodes. But yeah, certainly, yeah, I kind of feel like... Yeah, giving it a little bit more of an analytical eye. Like, I think that this is where our podcast flourishes a little bit more, in that we're kind of giving it a little bit more of an analytical eye as opposed to taking everything on face value. Like a lot of modern films just in general tend to be a little bit shallow. And
especially in the...
At least this film has some depth and it has some character and it has something it's trying to say,
Well, and if there's one thing that Schrader is good at, it's a character study. That's his bread and butter.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter of your Paul Schrader.
Because especially nowadays, when you have those stupid articles coming out saying it's, the golden age of dicks in cinema, it's still, and if you've listened to the Pam and Tommy episode, you'll know how I feel about the prosthetic boom that we're having right now.
Silly willies being carted around.
Dick costumes that are floating around, because that isn't helping anything. That's not helping anyone's context. That's not helping level the playing field between males and females.
No, because we live in a checklist culture, unfortunately.
So now, when you have movies and shows that are coming out that are touting full frontal, you better check your sources, which, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we're dealing with a costume, and that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, I feel like honestly it does come down a fair amount to how can we shoehorn this particular thing that seems to be big in the media, or will at least get us some level of coverage. Like, how do we do that? At least with Pam and Tommy. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of it's mostly Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, who did almost every single role in those classic Universal monster things as well. So, but yeah, here's the thing. I kind of I feel like, certainly with the HBO stuff, I feel like there's a shoehorning culture where it's kind of well, this is home box office. We can show everything if we want to. And it's always kind of been that way. And certainly now that it's getting a lot more coverage in the media, I feel like that's the main pool. And then that's when this argument of context and whether or not certain things should be existing or should be happening, that's when I start to question it a little bit more.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. It's about a checklist, we're not going to be popular and we're not going to get any coverage.
Specifically.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, and I want to... Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you.
Oh, fuck.
I'm so sorry. Would you recommend this film?
Yeah, it's worth watching.
It's really good, and as of the recording, it is streaming on HBO Max.
Yeah.
So... Because
the thing is, I like when stuff like this comes out, because I don't know about anybody else, but I'm kind of tired with the Marvel stuff. All that big box office blockbuster fucking bullshit. So when stuff like this comes out, and Red Rocket came out the same year as well, and a bunch of tiny little movies, they're the things I like going to see.
It makes you remember that there are good films coming out, and there's good films being made, and it makes
such a sad thing to say as well.
Hopeful.
Yeah,
for the future.
Yeah, it just makes you sound like it makes you sound like, that Marvel stuff? Well, here's your character dramas. These are better. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I also would recommend this film because it is Schrader. Schrader-thon, my boy Shrades.
Mm-hmm.
He does good stuff. Some stuff he's is not so great, but most of it, you can find some lovely things within any of his films, and this one is great throughout. So I'd 100% recommend it. I really like this movie. Everyone likes to watch Oscar Isaac.
He's on a roll.
So
at the moment.
And one day we'll actually talk about Oscar Isaac being naked in Scenes from a Marriage. We'll save it for the episode.
We will, because we'll probably need to watch the original Ingmar Bergman mini-series that he did. That's what it's based on.
Sounds great.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, it's Ingmar Bergman, so it's gonna be sad as fuck. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's gonna be what it's gonna be. So.
Coming to you from the World Series of Poker tournament, I have been Laura with an L.
Really? That's your ending cap? The World Series of Poker
That's
tournament?
where we spent a lot of time in this movie.
Okay.
Coming to you from a cloth-wrapped hotel room.
Nice.
I have been Laura with an L.
I love that idea of this sterile work environment. Yeah. My name's Ryan. Yeah, I said that right.
Nope. So thank you for doing that, and we'll catch you next time. Remember, if you guys want to know the film that's coming up next, we always reveal it the week before on our Instagram.
Yes.
So follow us. It's the same name as our podcast, obviously.
We don't know what it is yet.
I know. I'll fill you in later. Stay tuned.
Goodbye.
Bye.